Say hi. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you holding up out there?
We are great. We are great. Now, Lisa, you know tonight at 8 o'clock we have a special Maimonides, right?
So is it 8? It's 8 p.m. Eastern. We're mountains. We're
I know.
actually Pacific time.
It's 8 p.m. Eastern, so I guess that's 5 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Taste of Maimo, that's for everybody. Aviv, Alana, Leah. Oh, hi. Hi, Sue.
I felt shamed by Lisa.
Oh.
I felt like she needs to get it out.
Is this your mom?
Yeah.
Everybody has to say hi. This is critical. This is critical.
I'm gonna say
Everybody has to say
Pinterest.
hi.
Oh my goodness, nice to meet you. I mean, Lana.
Hi.
Hi.
It's early. It's still early for us out here for some of us. So.
This is here too. Hello.
And Nolan.
And Nolan.
Wait, that's it?
Back there.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So we're here for our next installment of this really, really cool experience called Haggada Be Kidding Me. And I think it's a great precursor for tonight's Taste of Maimonides class, which is my take, for those of you who've been in the program for last year, this idea of guilt-based Judaism and how we're going to move away from that. But that's what really Passover is all about. And we've been speaking now for about a week about the idea of emotional connection and doing everything we can to prepare now, to be excited now and get all the ideas clear. So on the night of Passover, it can just happen. The experience can be what we want it to be and create what we wanted to create out of it. So we had some great sessions last week. We actually had one yesterday for a couple of people who were hanging out on the weekend. And I want to start off with some questions and really try to open up a little practically. So we've talked about a few concepts. We talked about the idea of having sort of a voice in ourselves, the Perah, which is Pharaoh's name expounded, right? That there's a Pharaoh in all of us who's kind of holding us down. And then there's an idea of Pesach, that the mouth speaks. And about the night of Passover is really about getting all those ideas out and making it clear about what it is we want to do. We talked about the difference between freedom from something and freedom to something. So like freedom from oppression versus freedom to expression. And that's kind of what we've accomplished so far, as well as the idea of having an emotional connection and using emotional language, which is what Haggada means, which is speaking to that child inside of each of us. So I wanted to pause here and open up for questions if anybody has practically or ideas, things like that they wanted to discuss. So please let us know if you have any questions, and we'll continue for today.
Just want to see.
No questions. Okay, great. So there's one thing I wanted to discuss, which is there's different things we have at the Seder. So I want to rewind a little bit. And we talked a little about wine. So we're going to talk about wine and we're going to talk about matzah. Okay. Anybody needs help getting any of those things for Seder, please let me know. We're happy to provide a grape juice wine and or matzah for people who don't have access to it or have problems getting it. Let us know. But there's basically two interesting things we have. And we're going to have 4 cups of wine. A lot of 4s in Passover, and we're going to have a ton of matzah. Wine and matzah are actually very interesting and very different foods and drinks. So I want to open up and first have questions. Anybody know what matzah is? What is matzah?
I don't know what matzah is.
What is matzah?
Unleavened bread.
Unleavened bread.
I'm kidding.
Unleavened bread. Unleavened bread. Okay, so what does that mean, unleavened bread?
You didn't allow the time for it to rise.
Okay. So meaning the ingredients are not what make it matzah. It's the time that makes it matzah. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Leah?
In theory, yes, but now isn't it kind of different?
No. Meaning,
okay.
Meaning
there's. We're gonna go.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. But basically, you have about just technically speaking, of 18 minutes from the time that the dough is being made to when it becomes when it leaves the category of what's called matzah, enters the category of leavening or what's called chametz. Okay, 18 obviously a magical special number, has to do with life. So we want life to be so life is connected very much with matzah. Okay, so we're going to talk about what matzah is. Matzah actually does not mean unleavened bread. Matzah does not mean unleavened bread. A very interesting discussion comes up, and it's always good to see how do the sages use language and what do they refer to things, because they usually get to the depth of things. So when you see the word matzah appear in the Talmudic sources, we see it appear actually discussing, strangely enough, one of the laws of Shabbat, which is how much do I have to carry? Like everybody's heard you can't carry on Shabbat. Well, how much is carrying? I'm going to get there. Just bear with me. Okay. How much of something in my pocket is enough to carry? And it actually brings up the question of leather. So if I have a piece of leather and I put the leather in my pocket and I leave my house, did I carry it? So the Talmud says it depends. Was it fashioned leather? Was it tanned leather? Or was it plain leather? And the less it has and the more plain it is, the more of it you're allowed to carry because it really isn't anything. The word for that the Talmud uses, that the sages use for plain leather, is actually the word matzah. The language that the sages use for plain leather before it's been treated, before anything's happened to it, is called matzah. Now, obviously, unless you're in dire circumstances, no one is chewing leather and eating leather. Okay? We're talking about something very powerful, which is the idea of simplicity. Okay? Matzah, on its basic level, means essential. Basic. Essential and basic. That's what matzah is. So we tack on things like it doesn't have leaven, it didn't have that. Yeah, that's all true when it comes to food, but conceptually, it's the exact. It's a simpler concept. Matzah just means plain, simple, and essential. Now, Sue still there? Lisa, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, Lisa, we're coming to you because I heard Sue, but it sounded like she was in a closet.
No, she's right here.
Okay, so you're here?
Yeah, she's right next to me. She doesn't
Okay, good.
like to be
Okay,
seen.
Sue, what are the ingredients of matzah? Go.
Flour, sometimes salt, and water.
Okay, flour, no salt allowed, and water. Okay, flour and water. That's it. That's what matzah is. Okay, you can add certain things in it, but it's going to change. It's not going to be matzah. Okay, Lisa, we're coming to you.
Okay.
Flour and water. Why is that the ingredients for matzah?
It's simple. It's just 2 ingredients, and they had flour and they had water, and that was it.
Okay, very good. They had flour and they had water. Let's talk about what those things are. And then we'll try to understand exactly what matzah is and why it's so powerful. Okay, we're going to come to your son here for this. Jacob, if I were to break the human being up into two parts, so not 3, 4, or 5, I'm breaking the human being up into 2 parts, Jacob. What 2 parts make up a human being?
The body and the mind.
Say better. Say it a little bit better.
Clearer.
No, better. Say it better. The body and the
Soul.
body and the soul. The body and the soul. What makes you uniquely human is that you have a body and you have a soul. Animals also have bodies. They don't have the human soul. The human soul is uniquely something that is God-given into us, to human beings. We all have it. Every human being in the world has it. They have a body and they have a soul. The flour represents the body, represents the physicality. Okay, that you need that. Otherwise, your soul would just be somewhere. I don't know where it would be. It wouldn't be here. Okay, and then the water always represents the soul. Always represents the spirituality. Okay, what's unique about water is that it itself is endless. Water does not have natural boundaries. Okay, if water were allowed to do what it wants, water would have no bounds. It would be limitless. The only reason there are limits is because it happens to be that there's borders. There's borders that come around, right? You put water into a cup, it contains the water. If you didn't have the cup, the water would go everywhere, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
That's your soul. Your soul is limitless. Your soul is boundless. Your soul wants to escape and it wants higher meaning. And it's been put into something physical and something tangible and something with borders and boundaries called your body. Okay? The reason that matzah is so important on Passover is because we spoke about last week, the superpower that was Egypt, it's called Mitzrayim, okay, really can be broken up into 2 words, Metzar and Yam, which means the borders of the sea. We spoke about Egypt being constricting. Now we're talking about Egypt representing the concept of borders, that the sea comes, and when we left Egypt, we crossed Aviv?
A sea.
Excellent. We crossed the sea. Okay. Very important. Why do we have to cross the sea? Okay. We're actually leaving borders. Egypt represents for all of us borders, and the water represents boundless infiniteness, spirituality, and all the goodness that we can have in the world. And you put those two things together in its most essential form, and that is called matzah. My wife is calling me. I'm going to put this on pause. I apologize. Hang on one second. Okay. So now if I come back to you and ask you what matzah is, hopefully it's a little bit clearer and a little more elevated about what's going on. Okay. So let's back it up. Ilana, what is matzah?
Matzah is bread and water, and that mirrors people in the sense of like body and soul, which also mirrors Mitzrayim, which is like borders and water.
Amazing. And on Passover, we're leaving those borders, okay? So anybody who's ever heard of the term essentialism, there's a great book that came out last year called Essentialism. It's fantastic. I recommend it. And that's what Passover is about. Passover is eating bread that helps us to regain our essentials, okay? Essential does not have to mean minimalism, by the way, because if you notice on Passover, it's actually a tremendous mitzvah, a tremendous thing to do, is to bring out our fanciest vessels, our fanciest cups, our fanciest silverware, our fanciest tablecloths, everything, okay? But that does not mean I'm not essential. That does not mean I'm not essential. Essentialism means focusing on the things that are important and are correct for you and doing them better. In my opinion, there's not a holiday in the world that couldn't have come at a better time for quarantine than Passover.
Right. Right.
We are stripped down to our most essential things, which is the things that ultimately matter to us, which is us, our self-development, and if you're with your family, your families. And that's where you are. You're in those four walls. And the purpose of eating the matzah, and the reason it's ironically, it's called the bread of freedom. Yet we understand that actually it's referred to as the bread of affliction, but it's also the bread of freedom. How can it be? How can it be? The answer is it depends on our perspective. If I'm always worried about my leavening, my fruit juice that I want to add to my challah, that I want to put in my salt, it's got to be the right salt. It's got to be sea salt. It's got to be the pink sea salt. It's got to be the right amount. Too salty, not salty enough. You know what? I'm going to get some fruit nectar in there, maybe make it a little bit sweeter, right? I want to put some leavening in there, puff it up a little bit, get it to be a little bit more. Now, all of a sudden, I'm worrying about things that are not essential. And so matzah gives us the opportunity to, if I look at it as, where's my fruit juice? Where's my this? Where's my that? I'm poor. But if I look at it as, I have everything that I need and it's totally essential and no one can take that away from me and everything's up to me and I have it and I'm in control, I'm free. I'm free. That's what matzah is. And that's why when we eat matzah, you're not allowed to sit up straight. You have to lean when you eat the matzah. Leaning represents, actually lean to the left. Sorry, my camera's mirrored. You lean to the left. And now I'm eating my matzah because I'm a free person, right? So I'm not eating bread of affliction. I'm eating the bread that frees me to remind myself of what is essential. And that's what we're supposed to be thinking about when we eat the matzah. When we eat the matzah, you can think about whatever you want. You can think that this is dry. You can think that this is terrible. You can think, where's the fruit juice? Or you can think, wow, what a gift. I'm with my family, I'm with my loved ones, and I have what I need, and that's what I want. And essentially, I'm focused. That can change your life forever. And it takes about a minute to eat the matzah if you're chewing properly. It's a very powerful experience. It's a very powerful experience. I want to pause here and open up for any questions we have about that so far.
So the Hebrew word for juice is also meats. Does that have a connection with that?
I'm sure it does. Great point. I will get back to you. I don't know if it's a modern Hebrew word or not, but that's awesome of you. Very good. Anything else, guys? Lisa, any questions?
No.
But now you can begin to understand why people are so concerned that the matzah be a certain caliber and a certain quality, because we're trying to get it down to those bare bones. We're trying to distance ourselves from all the things that don't matter. All of the cleaning, all of the rituals, all the things that we're doing, we're looking, one second there, Fizz. When we're looking around the house for like, basically there's a custom to look through your house and get rid of things that are not for Passover. What you're really doing is you're preparing yourself for this idea. right? So you're not supposed to be stressed out when you're cleaning for Passover. You're supposed to be happy that you're basically paring things down to its essential. And that preparatory work that the Torah guides us in and the sages guide us in is that mindset of going from, oh my God, I've got to take care of all of these things, to, oh my God, I don't, and I'm totally essential, which I think is a beautiful process and will change how your preparations go this next week. Yes, Fizz.
How is it connected to mitzvah?
Okay, great. How is it connected to mitzvah? So Fizz wants to know the word matzah, when it's spelled certain ways, has the exact same spelling and therefore connotation as mitzvah. And the answer is that it's a word of connection. Okay, in simplicity, there's also the opportunity to connect. Mitzvah doesn't mean commandment. Mitzvah does not mean good deed. Mitzvah, on its simplest term, means tzevet, which means a team or a connection. So there's an opportunity now for me to connect, right? When I get things down to essentialism, I'm connecting. When I don't have things that are essential, I'm actually all over the place. Okay, the absent-minded professor whose desk is a mess actually is not focused on anything. When you're focused on the essentials, there's an opportunity there for connection. You can only do really one mitzvah at a time, right? In fact, so much so that the Torah tells you, if you're doing a mitzvah, you don't have to do any other mitzvahs, right? If I'm doing something else, I don't have to stop that to do another mitzvah. I'm actually engaged in a mitzvah. I'm good because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing at this moment. And there's this idea of sort of mindfulness that comes with that as well, which of course our people have been talking about and working on for 3,300 years. Thank you, modern world, for catching up to us. We appreciate it. Okay, great question, Fizz. Great question. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. So what's very unique and very important is that the question that I hoped you were going to ask was, if that's really what's going on, then how come 358 days a year I'm not eating matzah? How come this is only comes into our lives 1 week a year? Why is this not something? Essentialism sounds wonderful, sounds incredible. Why would I not live that way the entire year? So that's the question I want to explore now. I was hoping you guys were going to catch it. Alana, I'm really disappointed in you. I'm just joking.
Catching it?
So what do you guys say? How come right now I'm going to eat this leavened bread and I'll have all the things, and I'm going to get down to the essentials, and then right after Passover, we're going to go right back into this again? How come I'm not striving to keep this? Why is that? No tricks here. Say whatever you want.
It's more appreciated when it's rare. So if it's all the time, it just becomes your, typical daily routine, which is less meaningful and less special in my opinion. So I think, Passover is probably one of my favorite Jewish holidays because it is so meaningful on so many levels, and it reminds me of why I'm Jewish. And it Jacob wants me to stop, but that's
Beautiful. What else we got?
Well, sometimes don't we kind of emphasize, I wouldn't say like the opposite, but a very different concept. Like on Shabbat, we eat almost in excess and like have more than we need and overfill the glass with wine or grape juice, which to me seems like a very different idea, but that is powerful in its own right, which is like we can celebrate the week's work and finally have enough to like enjoy ourselves on Shabbat.
To apply that to Passover?
The juxtaposition makes each element more impactful, I guess.
Okay, excellent, beautiful. Anything else? Okay. Oh, Ilana, go ahead.
Oh, I guess just like, I'm not sure why it is that we don't always like think this way, but I just think like in general in the Jewish calendar, like everything repeats itself. So it's like you come back to the same holidays every year. And so I guess like similarly, my question would be, why don't we live like this all the time? But similarly, why is it that we need to repeat it? Why is it that the once a year is the good enough, not just the do it once, never again, or the do it all the time?
That's a great question. Interestingly, in Hebrew, the word for year is the same word for repetition and the same word for number 2, shniya. Okay, a shana, a shniya, a mishnah means to repeat, and shena means to sleep. They're all related. Okay, yashna means old, Okay, so the concept of a year, Alana, you're 100% right. The concept of a year is it repeats itself. There's nothing new in a year. Months, on the other hand, are new. This month is called Nisan. It's referred to in the Torah as Aviv, like my man over here. Okay, it's called the month of Aviv, which is spring, because this is the month of months. This is the newest of all months. It's the first month of the year. Okay, and its newness is exceptionally rare. And so what we're doing is we're actually celebrating the newness of Passover. That's the first thing we have. And the idea is, like you guys all know, we're supposed to take this essentialism and carry it off throughout the entire year, which is what we're trying to accomplish. And the goal is not to remain monks and not to remain like that. But the idea is to take the idea and, like you said, elevate it and bring it into the world. What fruit juice and yeast represent are the two aspects to ourselves that often hold us back. One in Hebrew is called gaiva, which would be the leavening, the puffness. Gaiva means arrogance. It's unessential. If you look at the bread, when it leavens, all that leavening is not really there for nutrition value at all. If you were to squeeze it, it would actually be the size of a matzah. So you're getting rid of that arrogance. And then fruit juice or sweeteners are the idea of taiva, which is sort of like chasing after my physical desires in a way that's not so productive, right? And so the idea is I'm getting rid of those things with the interest and aspect to bring them back in the positive and productive way, because ultimately they're there for a purpose, and it's up to me how I use them. It's up to me how I use them. And we want to ultimately leave Passover with newfound excitement and newfound focus on how to bring those aspects of ourselves into our lives, and we're not trying to abandon them forever. So we'll pick up tomorrow. Hi, I will leave time for questions now, but we'll pick up tomorrow. This is Jonathan. He's 1 year old now. We'll pick up tomorrow. Oops, sorry. With how to bring those things into our lives and what they're doing there in the first place. What is the purpose of these aspects of us, arrogance and these types of things, and how we're going to use them to elevate ourselves and have a better life we had before, which is what we're going for. Okay. Any questions? So I got a little rambly at the end there. Yes, Sue.
Actually, well, it's kind of a different, same topic. First of all, I will always be more grateful for my matzah now. But what do you think of the matzah baked goods, the commercial matzah baked goods that have so much, they rise with eggs. It's the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law.
Right. So I mean, even at the table, you're going to have all kinds of yummy foods to eat at the table. So the matzah is the only thing that you really have to eat at the meal that represents this idea. And the idea is that you should focus on it, and then it's up to you to decide how much of that. But like Leah said earlier, you do want to engage in that world and do want to have a good holiday, and you can take it as far as you want. But no, I don't think anyone's breaking spirit of the law with those things, because we are supposed to enjoy ourselves in the holiday. But the bread, which is the sustenance of the earth, which is where it represents sort of the sustenance and represents our relationship with the physical world. We're gonna call that back. Oops. Now I can't hear anybody. 1 second, I lost my headphones. Sorry, we're going to call that back and focus on that. And that's why when you eat the matzah, you're really supposed to only eat the matzah. You're not supposed to have any water or anything like that if you can avoid it, because you want to have that moment of clarity. But so I think that's a great point, and I'm not advocating that you have to have fancy desserts. And I do think that it's hard for people. Yeah. Yes, Jacob.
So if the purpose is essentialism, why do you have the 4 cups of wine? Why do you have like an entire Seder with a ton of different items on the Seder?
We're talking about matzah. So, okay. And the Seder is essentialism. Every single one of the steps we'll try and go through. We'll be able to do wine tomorrow. We'll try and cover wine tomorrow and what's going on with wine and why we have to have 4 of them and all that stuff. But I wanted to cover matzah tonight, which I think is the centerpiece of the Seder. And just one more point, you'll notice during the Seder that whenever we're talking about freedom, the matzah is actually uncovered. The matzah actually part of the rules. If you read the rules of Seder, it says you uncover the matzah when you're talking about freedom. And the reason is for this exactly, is the idea has to be so clear that matzah is what's essential. So you're allowed to ask yourself, and you should ask yourself, is what I'm engaging in essential? Is this helping me get my goals clear? Am I working on breaking out of my boundaries? Am I getting outside of my own Egypt? Those are things you want to ask yourself. And the wine is going to help us do that also, which we'll talk about tomorrow.
I have just one question.
Yes.
To distinguish between regular matzah and shmura matzah.
Yes.
So we like to have both, but
Okay.
if you could talk a little bit about the importance or the reason behind having the shmura versus the regular.
Sure. So
Manischewitz.
the shmura, Manischewitz, a lot of Manischewitz actually might be shmura as well. The idea of shmura matzah is that it was extra protected from the time that there's 3 different times, either the time that it was planted, harvested, or ground, or baked, different levels of shmura that go all the way back to people watching it. And again, it goes back to how careful do you want to be with this idea of time, the idea of it being sort of unadulterated. And not that the other matzah is not kosher, it is. But the idea of shmura is you're sort of going above and beyond and saying, I'm interested in tapping into this essentialism. And the other matzah, I think we have both also. And certainly there's machine versus handmade. A lot of people like to have the handmade matzah. It's a little bit more expensive. But again, without these ideas being clear, I don't think that would be inspiring at all. So my hope is that once these ideas become clear and we understand why we're doing what we're doing, the Seder begins to open up and that experience can be there. And then shmura matzah can take on its own relationship for you, which is I went above and beyond. I paid a little bit more, because I care about this idea a little bit more. But again, it's really about your connection to the mitzvah, and I wouldn't stress about it.
I get it. No, you brought a totally different perspective about what matzah is to me. I never thought of it in that way. So
my pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay. I will see you all hopefully tomorrow at 2:00 for more Haggada Be Kidding Me. And again, this is not a shameless plug. I recommend the Bernstein Haggada for the deepest explanations of what's going on. And then I have the Simply Jewish Haggada, which really goes through how to run a Seder really clearly and simply, which I can send to anybody. We have a deal with the publisher. It's extraordinarily inexpensive. So if anybody's interested in the Simply Jewish Haggada, multiple copies for the family, please let me know and I can have that sent to you guys. Really not a big deal at all. And I highly recommend that you have Haggadas that you're excited about at the Seder. And then of course the Cat's Haggada, which is the graphic sort of, I wouldn't call it a kid's Haggada, but the pictures are just so spectacular. I really think it brings everything to life in such a unique and powerful way that you can't help but get excited about it. So those are the 3 that I have in my home that I use, and I cherish them, and I think that they're fantastic and sort of bring everything. So if you're interested in those, please tell your children or yourselves, welcome to PM me, and I'll make sure to get them to you hopefully on time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. See you tomorrow. Bye.